Hey everyone, it's Greg and welcome back to another Dice Throne Talk. Today we're going to talk about 5 things that you can do to improve your gameplay for Dice Throne. We're not going to be talking about Dice Throne Adventures on this video, mainly because there are 2 different ways to play that. You're going to play Dice Throne differently than Dice Throne Adventures a lot of times, and we'll get into that in another video. So let's get right to it here. Don't want to take too long overall. Number 1 thing that you can do to improve your gameplay is not play a defensive card, a defensive upgrade on your main phase 1. The reason why is because usually defensive upgrades cost a lot of CP to play, and if you have other cards in your hand, dice modifiers, what have you, it's going to keep you from playing those cards during your offensive roll phase. So I know that's something that you really want to play because you want to get your defense out there, because usually your defenses are a lot better when you upgrade them. Obviously it's an upgrade. However, wait until your main phase 2. Wait until you're done with your offensive roll phase, dealt all the damage, and then play that card. It's just good standard practice to make sure you have CP in order to do what you need to do, or it's, well, do I need to sell this one card that way I can play this upgrade? Just wait until that second main phase. The second thing to do is, speaking of selling cards, good night. Don't sell cards until you need to sell the cards. A lot of times on a 1v1 matchup, having more cards in your hand with 1 or 2 CP can keep people from trying to go for an ultimate or a mini ultimate or modifying dice a lot. If they see that you have rolled something good on your first or second roll and you have 1 or 2 CP saved up and 2 or 3 cards in your hand, they may be less likely to modify your dice if they are doing that. Or they're just going to realize that you have cards in your hand, CP, it's more powerful than having that CP and no cards in your hand, because like, well, it's 1 card in your hand and you have 5 CP, well, I'll chance it on that. The next thing is try not to roll out an ability because you want a different one. My best friend, he likes to do this quite a bit, so if he's watching this, he knows I'm going to talk about this, so we have good fun with it, especially with Dice Throne Adventures. But he likes to go for specific attacks, and if he rolls something else, he's like, yeah, but I want this attack. And then it's like, well, it's only my first roll, so I'm just going to roll and see what I can get. There's actually a pretty accurate meme that came out maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago at the time of this recording of a person rolling 5 swords for the samurai and, going like, no, I don't want that. And then a third roll, he's like, yeah, I want that. And it's 3 swords instead of 5 swords. So it's a less damaging attack because you try to go for something that you don't have. Let the dice figure out what they want to do and go from there. Try not to roll out of abilities best that you can, mainly because you may use up a lot of resources along the way just to go for a different attack. Some attack is better than a whiff. You don't want to whiff in Dice Throne or Dice Throne Adventures, but if you whiff one time in Dice Throne, your chances of losing are exponentially greater, mainly because you need to be doing ability every single time. Next one is the 4th one. Don't play modifier cards only on your dice. If you're playing Twice as Wild, So Wild, Tippet, only on your dice, just so you can play some ability, most likely you're not rolling to what you can get easily based on chances, ratios, what have you. A lot of times, like I said just before, if you can make your opponent whiff or make them go from a large straight to a small straight, go from a mini ultimate to, oh, nope, you don't get that mini ultimate now you're going to whiff because you try to go for an ultimate, you missed it, you have a mini, I'll tip it, now it's a 5, and now you don't have anything. That is extremely powerful. Try to instigate more of modifying your opponent's dice than yours. You can practice that quite a bit with playing with lower complexity characters such as Samurai, Barbarian, Moon Elf. They don't need as many dice modifier cards for their own dice, mainly because the complexity isn't too great and you can roll into really whatever you want to within 3 rolls pretty easily. So practice that and see how you do and see if there's a difference, and that can really frustrate your opponent. The 5th and final one, don't forget what your opponent has played for cards. If your opponent has played a Tippet, So Wild, Twice as Wild, whatever dice modifiers, CP, whatever it may be aware of what your opponent has played, because that can tell you what is or what is not in their hand. If you're afraid of tipping something or modifying their dice at all, like, well, crud, they have 3 CP, they may have Twice as Wild in their hand. Oh yeah, that's right, they did play it a couple turns ago. They don't have that anymore. So the best that they have is a So Wild, at best. Or they could have nothing. A lot of times I may try to modify my opponent's dice and force them to spend their resources. So I'm more being the active player and forcing them to spend resources when they don't want to, because it's keeping them from going for their big attacks, big ultimates, whatever it may be. So those are my 5 things that you can improve upon for your Dice Throne 1v1 matchups. If you have any more, let me know down below. There's obviously more than just 5, but I wanted to start with those 5 as they can definitely help out and improve your experience and gameplay for Dice Throne. Until then, we'll see you.